The afternoon sun blazed mercilessly over the Bay of Biscay. 200 miles from Brest's fortified coast, the waters churned with deadly purpose. Marine Stabsarzt Dr. Paul Pfaffinger felt the steel rail bite into his palms as he gripped the conning tower's edge. 3 RAF bowfighters tore through the haze like metallic vultures. Their cannon fire already erupted in deadly streams toward U-441. Horror froze the doctor's features as he watched. Blood pooled across the bridge plating where Kapitan Lieutenant Hartmann had fallen. Shrapnel had found its mark with surgical precision. The diving klaxons remained silent. No crash dive would save them this day. 30 seconds stretched like eternity, while 10 men died around him. 13 more writhed with wounds that painted the deck crimson. Every officer lay incapacitated or dead. The doctor stared at the carnage in disbelief. His naval training consisted of healing wounds, not commanding submarines. Yet here he stood, the only man capable of navigating this crippled vessel home through enemy-controlled waters. Death screamed overhead in aircraft engines, while Pfaffinger faced an impossible task. Hartmann would survive those wounds eventually, but the doctor's emergency command would become legend among U-boat crews. What they witnessed that day represented everything their war had become. The transformation from hunter to hunted had consumed merely 4 months. February 1943 seemed like another lifetime now. Back then, U-boats still ruled their underwater domain. METOX radar receivers provided comfortable warning of approaching danger. Aircraft appeared as distant specks on the horizon. Crash dives unfolded with mechanical precision and ample time to spare. July 1943 delivered a different reality entirely. Death arrived without announcement or mercy. The warning window that once stretched 2 to 3 comfortable minutes had compressed into desperate seconds. German submarine crews now measured survival in heartbeats rather than minutes. The time between first aircraft sighting and depth charge impact determined who lived and who died. Technology told the story through brutal mathematics. Throughout 1942, German submarines had dominated the Atlantic completely. They sank 1,094 merchant vessels, totaling 7.8 million tons of shipping. Only 87 U-boats paid the price for this devastating success. The exchange rate brought Britain's food supply to the edge of complete collapse. 1 year transformed everything beyond recognition. May 1943 alone witnessed the Kriegsmarine losing 41 submarines while sinking merely 34 merchant ships. The reversal was so complete and shocking that Admiral Karl Dönitz made an unprecedented decision. On May 24, 1943, he withdrew his submarines from North Atlantic operations entirely. This effectively conceded defeat in the Atlantic battle. The cause of this catastrophic shift lay hidden in technological advancement measured in precious seconds. Germany's Type 7 submarine, the backbone of their underwater fleet, could complete a crash dive in 20 to 30 seconds under perfect conditions. Reaching 25 meters depth required approximately 35 seconds of coordinated effort. These specifications meant absolutely nothing without advance warning of aircraft approach. Allied centimetric radar changed everything in March 1943. German detection equipment couldn't sense these new emissions at all. U-boat crews found themselves under attack before knowing aircraft were even present. The escape mechanism that had saved hundreds of submarines became worthless when crews received no warning to begin diving. The first hint of technological change arrived on August 27, 1942. Oberleutnant zur See Hans-Joachim Hesse maintained his watch aboard U-94 in Caribbean waters. Clear skies stretched endlessly in every direction. The submarine's METOX radar detector, a French-manufactured device capable of sensing Allied radar from 6 miles away, registered complete silence. Every instrument confirmed their isolation. Then engine noise shattered the peaceful afternoon. The distinctive drone of aircraft engines echoed directly overhead. According to their equipment, this was impossible. The lookout's warning cry triggered immediate action. Less than 15 seconds elapsed between first spotting the American PBY Catalina and ordering the crash dive. 15 seconds proved insufficient for survival. As U-94's conning tower slipped beneath the waves, 4 650-pound depth charges bracketed the submarine with devastating accuracy. The pressure hull cracked under the explosive assault. Lieutenant Gordon Fiss of VP-92 had approached from directly astern, exploiting the submarine's blind spot to achieve complete surprise. His after-action report contained 2 words that would define submarine warfare for the next 3 years. The target was too late. Those simple words encapsulated everything that followed. In the war's early years, U-boat commanders operated with generous safety margins. Standard doctrine required 4 lookouts on the bridge during surface operations. Each man scanned a specific sector of sky and surrounding ocean with trained precision. Clear weather conditions allowed experienced lookouts to spot aircraft 8 to 10 miles away. This provided 3 to 4 minutes of precious warning time. Captain Lieutenant Werner Hartenstein, commanding U-156, demonstrated these procedures throughout 1942 operations in the South Atlantic. His lookouts successfully detected and evaded dozens of aircraft patrols with routine efficiency. September 1942 war diary entries recorded typical encounters with methodical precision. 14:25 hours, aircraft bearing 145, distance approximately 8 miles, alarm, crash dive initiated. First depth charges explode 90 seconds after submergence, well clear of boat. 90 seconds of safety margin after submergence represented luxury by later standards. This comfortable buffer allowed the entire bridge watch to clear the tower properly. Diesel engines shut down according to procedure. The submarine reached safe depth well before weapons arrived overhead. Statistics from this period confirmed German confidence in their survival methods. Between February and October 1942, U-boats completed 80% of Bay of Biscay transits without coming under attack. Even when caught on the surface, 90% successfully crash-dived to safety before weapons release. The introduction of ASV Mark II radar in early 1942 initially seemed manageable to German submarine commanders. The 1.7-meter wavelength radar could detect surface submarines at 10 to 15 miles distance. But these emissions were easily detected by German METOX receivers with their characteristic pulse patterns. Radio operators could determine from the signal when aircraft had acquired their submarine as a target. Pulses became steady instead of sweeping, usually providing 2 to 3 minutes before aircraft arrived overhead. Squadron leader Humphrey de Verde Lee understood the fundamental problem with night attacks on submarines perfectly. Radar could track submarines to within 1 mile accurately, but contact was lost precisely when visual identification became critical. Submarines would hear approaching aircraft engines, execute crash dives, and escape into protective darkness. Lee's solution was elegantly simple, yet devastatingly effective. Mount a 22 million candle power searchlight that would illuminate targets at the exact moment radar contact was lost. The first operational Lee light attack occurred on June 4, 1942. Squadron leader J.H. Greswell, flying Wellington L of 172 Squadron, illuminated Italian submarine Luigi Torelli in the Bay of Biscay. Though the attack failed due to faulty depth charges, the psychological impact was immediate and lasting. Darkness no longer guaranteed submarine safety. The first successful Lee light attack came exactly 1 month later. On July 5, 1942, pilot officer W.H. Moffett of 502 Squadron caught U-502 fully surfaced. Captain Lieutenant Jürgen von Rosenstiel, the submarine's commander, had less than 20 seconds from illumination to impact. When U-502 was finally sunk 6 days later, recovered documents confirmed crew shock at being attacked without warning during night hours. The Lee light compressed reaction time dramatically and dangerously. A Wellington bomber approaching at 120 miles covered the 1-mile gap between radar failure and weapon release in just 30 seconds. Subtract time for crew reaction and dive initiation, and submarines had perhaps 15 to 20 seconds to reach underwater safety. This proved insufficient to reach safe depth below exploding depth charges. By early 1943, Operation Durange deployed 131 aircraft equipped with Lee lights in coordinated patrols across the Bay of Biscay transit routes. Admiral Dönitz responded by reversing standard operating procedures completely. He ordered submarines to surface during daylight hours and submerge at night. This merely shifted vulnerability without eliminating the underlying problem. March 1943 marked the true beginning of the end for effective U-boat operations. The introduction of ASV Mark III radar operating at 10-centimeter wavelength using cavity magnetron technology was completely invisible to German METOX equipment. U-boat crews began reporting impossible attacks without any radar warning whatsoever. German scientists insisted no radar could operate at such incredibly short frequencies. U-333 became one of the first documented victims on March 6, 1943, while crossing the dangerous Bay of Biscay. Captain Lieutenant Peter Kramer's official report sent shock waves through U-boat headquarters. No METOX warning. Aircraft appeared directly overhead without detection. Crash dive initiated under fire. Severe casualties from strafing. Within weeks, similar reports flooded in from every Atlantic operational area. U-boats were being caught on the surface in broad daylight, at night, in fog conditions where they should have been completely invisible to conventional detection methods. The mathematics were brutally simple and unforgiving. A B-24 Liberator equipped with ASV Mark III could detect submarines at 15 miles distance and attack at 200 miles per hour. From first detection to weapon release took less than 5 minutes of flight time. Without any warning system functioning, submarines might have 5 seconds from visual sighting to impact. This proved insufficient even to sound the diving alarm properly. The psychological impact on crews was absolutely devastating. Men who had relied completely on their detection equipment for survival suddenly found themselves blind to approaching death. Trust in technology evaporated instantly, replaced by paralyzing paranoia. Some submarines began diving at random intervals, desperately hoping to avoid being caught on the surface. By May 1943, the Bay of Biscay had transformed from a routine transit route into what U-boat crews called the Valley of Death. Submarines leaving French bases faced a gauntlet of aircraft equipped with centimetric radar, Lee lights, and increasingly lethal weapons. In April and May 1943 alone, 56 U-boats were lost in just 2 months. Many were destroyed within sight of their home ports. The compression of warning time created tactical implications far beyond individual submarine survival. U-boats consumed battery power at completely unsustainable rates, forced to crash dive repeatedly without sufficient time to properly recharge their electrical systems. A Type 7 submarine could maintain 7.3 knots submerged speed for just 1 hour before completely exhausting its batteries. Forced to surface for recharging, they immediately came under attack again. The introduction of the Mark 24 Fido acoustic homing torpedo added another lethal dimension to the aerial threat. Dropped from as low as 200 feet at speeds up to 120 knots, This 680-pound weapon achieved a 22% success rate compared to 9% for conventional depth charges. Once in the water, Fido executed circular search patterns while homing on the 24 kHz acoustic signature of submarine propellers. Between May 1943 and the war's end, these weapons sank 37 submarines and damaged 18 more. They could attack U-boats that had successfully crash-dived beyond conventional weapon range. German attempts to restore technological balance consistently arrived too late to matter. The Naxos radar detector introduced in September 1943 could detect centimetric radar emissions but only at ranges of 5 to 8 kilometers. This provided insufficient warning when aircraft approached at 300 kilometers per hour. The device's delicate construction frequently failed under combat conditions. The snorkel system, adopted from captured Dutch submarine designs and deployed operationally in early 1944, offered only a partial solution to the surface vulnerability problem. This innovation allowed submarines to run diesel engines while remaining submerged, but severe limitations accompanied this capability. Speed was reduced to just 6 knots maximum. The diesel exhaust created a visible plume detectable from miles away. Engine noise running through the confined snorkel tube made acoustic detection of approaching aircraft completely impossible. Donitz's desperate order of April 27, 1943, for U-boats to fight it out with aircraft on the surface rather than dive proved utterly disastrous. Selected Type 7 submarines were converted into U-flak boats with massively enhanced anti-aircraft armament. U-441's experience on July 12, 1943, demonstrated the complete futility of this approach. Coordinated attacks by multiple aircraft easily overwhelmed submarine defenses despite the enhanced armament installation. Initially, U-boat crews absolutely refused to accept that their technological advantage had vanished completely. When U-333 reported being attacked without radar warning in March 1943, other commanders dismissed it as equipment failure or inexcusable crew error. The German scientific establishment continued insisting that radar couldn't possibly operate at wavelengths shorter than 50 centimeters. Admiral Dönitz himself initially rejected crew reports of undetectable radar systems. His war diary from April 1943 reveals deep skepticism about these impossible crew reports. This systematic denial proved extremely costly. Commanders who should have adapted tactics immediately continued operating as if METOX provided adequate warning of approaching danger. U-175, U-192, and U-273 were all lost in April 1943, while their crews maintained complete confidence in their radar detection equipment. As losses mounted beyond acceptable levels, increasingly desperate measures emerged from U-boat headquarters. The order to fight aircraft on the surface represented a fundamental break with established submarine doctrine. U-441's conversion to anti-aircraft configuration added multiple 20mm cannon installations. But the July 12, 1943, attack demonstrated complete futility when 3 Beaufighters overwhelmed the submarine's defenses, leaving 10 dead and 13 wounded. By autumn 1943, even the most optimistic commanders accepted that the technological battle was irretrievably lost. The introduction of American escort carriers meant continuous air patrol coverage, even in mid-Atlantic waters previously considered safe. Kapitän-Leutnant Wolfgang Luth, one of Germany's most successful U-boat commanders with over 200,000 tons of shipping sunk, addressed this new reality in his final patrol report. "The enemy can see us when we cannot see him. He can attack without warning. Our survival now depends not on equipment, but on luck alone." The psychological shift was complete and irreversible. U-boat crews that had once sung confidently about naval victories now referred to their submarines as iron coffins. By 1944, Statistical life expectancy for a U-boat crewman was exactly 3 patrols. Of 40,000 men who served in U-boats during the war, 28,000 would die. This represented a 70% casualty rate, the highest of any service in any nation during World War II. A Type 7 U-boat crash dive was a precisely choreographed emergency maneuver requiring perfect timing and coordination. The sequence began with the bridge watch spotting danger and initiating the alarm. Electric klaxons sent every crew member racing to diving stations with practiced efficiency. The bridge watch had to clear the conning tower in less than 12 seconds, sliding down the ladder in specific predetermined order. Control room operators opened main ballast tank vents while simultaneously flooding the negative tank, a 70-ton auxiliary ballast tank located forward. The bow planes went to maximum down angle of 30 degrees. All available crew members ran forward to add their body weight to the bow section. The entire evolution required split-second timing to avoid disaster. Too steep an angle and battery acid would spill, creating deadly chlorine gas. Too shallow an angle and depth charges would destroy them before reaching safe depth. American patrol aircraft exploited every vulnerability in this complex process with scientific precision. The ASV Mark III radar operated at 9.1 GHz frequency with a wavelength of exactly 3.2 centimeters, completely invisible to all German detection equipment. The radar could detect a surfaced submarine at 15 miles distance in calm sea conditions. The Lee light produced 50 million candle power, automatically triggered when radar range decreased to exactly 1 mile. This combination gave submarines less than 25 seconds from illumination to weapon impact. The attack on U-758 on June 8, 1943, demonstrated this new reality with brutal clarity. After reporting convoy GU-S-9's position south of the Azores, the submarine came under sustained attack from USS Bogue's air group. The submarine remained on the surface for over 30 minutes under continuous attack. Crew members manned anti-aircraft guns while others prepared for emergency dive procedures. Only when overwhelming force arrived did U-758 successfully crash dive. 7 wounded crew members forced the boat's immediate return to base. On October 20, 1943, U-256 came under attack from aircraft operating from USS Bogue's flight deck. After an unsuccessful crash dive attempt, Captain Lieutenant Wilhelm Brauel was killed instantly, and several crew members wounded seriously. The submarine's war diary recorded crew shock at being caught without any warning despite functioning detection equipment. The mutual destruction of U-571 and an Australian Sunderland on January 28, 1944, illustrated the compressed time frame perfectly. Flight Lieutenant R.D. Lucas detected U-571 on radar at 12 miles distance. Achieving complete surprise by approaching through cloud cover, Lucas emerged at just 800 yards distance. This gave U-571 exactly 18 seconds before weapon release. As the submarine's conning tower disappeared beneath the waves, the Sunderland's port wing struck the submarine's jumping wire. Both vessels were lost with heavy casualties. 52 men from U-571 died along with 11 from the Sunderland's crew. The decisive moment came during Black May 1943, when the U-boat force lost 41 submarines in a single catastrophic month. The battle around convoy ONS-5 demonstrated the complete impossibility of successful operations. 17 U-boats attacked the convoy between May 4th and 6. 6 were sunk immediately, 11 were damaged severely, and not a single merchant ship was lost. Statistics from this battle revealed complete reversal of previous advantages. Average warning time before air attack was 8 seconds. Percentage of successful crash dives when attacked was 31%. U-boats able to execute successful torpedo attacks was 0. Admiral Dönitz's diary entry for May 24, 1943, conceded complete defeat. The enemy's new location devices and weapons have torn our sole offensive weapon from our hands. The submarine war must be withdrawn until new weapons restore the balance. U-boat operations after May 1943 became exercises in survival rather than offensive action. Submarines remained submerged for up to 20 hours daily, surfacing only briefly to ventilate compartments and charge batteries. Even these brief surface periods invited immediate and devastating attack. The introduction of the snorkel system in 1944 eliminated the need for full surface operations but created entirely new vulnerabilities. The device required precise depth control. Too deep and the valve closed, creating a vacuum that could burst eardrums. Too shallow and the snorkel head created a visible wake detectable from miles away. Statistics from 1944 reveal the completely transformed nature of submarine operations. Average time on surface per day was 45 minutes, down from 16 hours in 1942. Average patrol speed was 4 knots, down from 10 knots. Merchant ships sunk per U-boat lost was 0.7, down from 12.6 in 1942. The compression of the crash-dive window had strategic implications extending far beyond individual submarine losses. U-boats could no longer coordinate wolf-pack attacks effectively. Commerce raiding became impossible when submarines spent most of their time submerged at minimal speed. The Battle of the Atlantic's outcome was decided by pure technology. When the crash-dive window closed permanently, Germany's hope of strangling Allied supply lines vanished completely. American patrol squadrons evolved from amateur submarine hunters to efficient killers through systematic training and relentless technological advancement. At Naval Air Station Jacksonville, crews practiced attacks on actual submarines. Mock attacks were filmed and critiqued meticulously. Crews taking more than 35 seconds from sighting to weapon release failed and repeated the exercise. By late 1943, American aircraft achieved 1 U-boat kill for every 40 attack sorties, compared to 1 per 200 sorties in 1942. The introduction of escort carriers brought aircraft coverage to mid-ocean areas. USS Bogues Air Group sank 13 U-boats in 2 years of operations. These small carriers proved that air power could be projected anywhere in the Atlantic. Lieutenant Commander Robert P. Hopgood, who helped establish American anti-submarine doctrine, described the evolution clearly. We learned to think in seconds, not minutes. Every procedure was refined to shave time. We knew the Germans needed at least 20 seconds to crash dive. Our job was to deny them those seconds. VPB-110 became the first American squadron to employ Lee lights operationally on January 10, 1943. They perfected the false engine technique, throttling back during approach to create the illusion of distance, then suddenly increasing power for the final attack run. This psychological warfare proved extremely effective against already traumatized U-boat crews. Ultra-intelligence from Enigma decryption fundamentally altered U-boat survival mathematics. The initial breakthrough in reading the Dolphin cipher in June 1941 was temporarily lost when the 4-rotor Shark cipher was introduced in February 1942. However, in October 1942, Lieutenant Francis Fasson and able seaman Colin Grazier from HMS Petard boarded the sinking U-559 to recover vital code books. Both men drowned when the submarine suddenly sank, but their sacrifice restored Allied code-breaking capability by December 1942. Statistics reveal Ultra's devastating impact on submarine operations. U-boats intercepted while transiting to patrol areas, 73% with Ultra intelligence versus 21% without. Average time from U-boat position report to air attack, 4 hours. Convoys successfully routed around wolf packs, 67%. This intelligence advantage meant that even perfect crash dives only postponed the inevitable. Submarines forced to surface hours later were simply attacked again with precise timing. The numbers tell the complete story of technological warfare's evolution. 1942 represented German advantage. U-boats operational, 250. Allied merchant ships sunk, 1,094. U-boats lost, 87. Exchange ratio, 12.6 ships per U-boat lost. Average warning time before air attack, 180 seconds. Successful crash dives, 89%. 1943 marked the turning point. U-boats operational, 425. Allied merchant ships sunk, 363. U-boats lost, 258. Exchange ratio, 1.4 ships per U-boat lost. Average warning time before air attack, 15 seconds. Successful crash dives, 31%. 1944 to 1945 witnessed complete collapse. U-boats operational, 375. Allied merchant ships sunk, 132. U-boats lost, 344. Exchange ratio, 0.38 ships per U-boat lost. Average warning time before air attack, 5 seconds. Successful crash dives, 15%. Of 1,162 U-boats commissioned during the entire war, 785 were destroyed completely. This represented a loss rate of 67.5%. Aircraft accounted for 250 of these losses directly, with another 100 attributed to combined air-surface attacks. The human cost was absolutely staggering. Of 40,000 men who served in U-boats throughout the war, 28,000 died in action. This represented a 70% casualty rate unprecedented in military history. Herbert Werner, who survived 5 different U-boats and wrote the memoir Iron Coffins, described the evolution from confident hunters to hunted prey. We measured our lives in seconds, the seconds between detection and death. Those seconds were everything, and then they were nothing. Werner survived the war as one of only 7,000 from the original 40,000 who served. His memoir captured the lasting psychological toll. Decades later, he still suffered nightmares, shouting, "Alarm!" in his sleep, forever crash diving in his dreams. Dr. Paul Pfaffinger, who saved U-441 after the July 12, 1943 attack, became a respected physician in Hamburg after the war ended. In a 1976 interview, he reflected thoughtfully. "I saved more lives in those 31 hours getting the boat home than in my entire medical career. We had perhaps 5 seconds warning when those Beaufighters attacked. 5 seconds between life and death." At a 1985 reunion of U-boat veterans in Munich, survivors discussed their shared experiences openly. Reinhard Hardigan, who had commanded U-123 during successful operations off the American coast, reflected sadly. "We went from being hunters to hunted in months. The technology that had protected us, the ability to disappear in seconds, was taken away. When those seconds were gone, we were simply targets." The U-boat experience offers critical lessons for contemporary warfare. Current military systems depend on technological margins, as narrow as those crucial seconds once were. The lesson remains absolutely constant. Technological advantages are temporary. Any system dependent on narrow time margins for survival is inherently vulnerable. Military planners today study the U-boat collapse as a case study in technological disruption. Today's stealth aircraft, cyber weapons, and submarine systems face the same fundamental vulnerability. The advantage they provide exists only until an effective counter is developed by the enemy. The last Type 7 U-boat, U-995, sits as a memorial at Labo Naval Memorial near Kiel. Visitors can walk through the cramped compartments where men once counted seconds between life and death. A plaque near the conning tower reads simply, "In memory of the 28,000 German submariners who perished at sea." The story of the German U-boat's crash dive window represents one of history's clearest examples of technology determining warfare's ultimate outcome. Between 1942 and 1943, Allied innovations compressed German reaction time from comfortable minutes to desperate seconds to nothing at all. When centimetric radar eliminated warning entirely in March 1943, the U-boat force ceased to exist as an effective weapon of war. The human stories within this technological revolution illuminate the true cost of modern warfare. Dr. Paul Pfaffinger navigating a shattered submarine home after assuming emergency command, crews manning anti-aircraft guns while knowing they couldn't possibly win. The mutual destruction of U-571 and its attacker in the Atlantic depths. These moments reveal how advancing technology transformed individual courage into statistical inevitability. The strategic implications extended far beyond individual encounters at sea. When the escape window closed permanently, it took with it Germany's only hope of strangling Allied supply lines across the Atlantic. The Battle of the Atlantic, which Churchill called the dominating factor throughout the war, was decided not by seamanship or individual courage, but by the compression of time through relentless technological advancement. The U-boats entered the war with a reliable escape mechanism. The crash dive could save them from aerial attack with reasonable consistency. This tactical advantage shaped German naval strategy completely, enabling wolf-pack tactics that nearly brought Britain to starvation. But the same scientific progress that had given submarines their underwater refuge systematically took it away through radar advancement, sonobuoys, and acoustic torpedoes. For the men who lived through this technological revolution, those disappearing seconds defined absolutely everything. They had trusted their lives to a narrow margin of time and watched that margin vanish completely. In 1942, they possessed minutes of precious warning. By mid-1943, they had seconds. By 1944, they had nothing at all. The Battle of the Atlantic was won in laboratories and factories as much as on the ocean's surface. British scientists who developed centimetric radar technology. American workers who built thousands of patrol aircraft. Allied intelligence officers who broke German codes systematically. They collectively eliminated the U-boat's escape window through coordinated technological advancement. Their victory was methodical rather than dramatic, technological rather than heroic. Yet within this technological struggle, humanity persisted stubbornly. American air crews dropping life rafts to German survivors. U-boat crews remaining at their posts despite overwhelming odds. The mutual respect between enemies who understood each other's courage. These glimpses of human dignity amid mechanized slaughter remind us that even technological warfare cannot completely dehumanize combat. The U-boat force that entered the war as Germany's elite naval unit, confident in their ability to disappear beneath the waves, ended it as a shattered remnant of its former strength. Of the young men who sailed from French ports singing songs of victory, 7 in 10 would never return home. They died because technology stole the precious seconds they needed to survive. Modern nuclear submarines never surface, making the crash dive completely obsolete. Yet they face their own technological vulnerabilities today. Satellite surveillance systems, underwater sensor networks, autonomous vehicles may one day compress their survival margins just as radar and aircraft compressed those of their predecessors. The ghosts of U-boat crews who died believing they had seconds to spare serve as eternal warning to all who place complete faith in technological advantages. In the brutal arithmetic of technological warfare, yesterday's safety margin becomes today's vulnerability. Today's decisive advantage transforms into tomorrow's fatal weakness. The final irony remains stark and unforgiving. The most successful submarine force in military history was destroyed not by superior seamanship or greater courage, but by the elimination of less than 1 minute of warning time. Those seconds, counted desperately by lookouts, measured precisely by engineers, lost irrevocably to technology, determined the fate of nations. The story of the 45-second crash dive reminds us that in warfare, as in life, nothing remains permanent except change itself. The German submarine force learned this lesson at terrible cost. 28,000 lives were lost when their margin of safety compressed from minutes to seconds to nothing. Their sacrifice stands as eternal testament to a fundamental truth about military technology. The seconds you count on today will not save you tomorrow.